Everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the
and to
republic
the republic for
for
which
which
it
it
stands,
stands, one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under God,
God, with liberty
indivisible.
and justice for all.
Should I do the land acknowledgement because I have blue hair?
definitely.
So as a way of respecting, honoring, and creating awareness about our past, we begin our village board meetings by acknowledging that New Paltz is on the ancestral land of the Munsee, Esopus, and Lenape people.
Okay, and I'm going to add a couple of things to the consent agenda. We have John Oleski's resignation from the planning board. We have an addition of a cybersecurity policy to our insurance policy for an additional $1,000 per year. And in the business agenda, shade tree code revisions and a discussion about 5 Broadhead that will come when we do the planning board liaison updates. Would someone like to second my motion to amend both of those agendas?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, would anyone like to make any announcements?
Yeah, I'd like to share some information about the census, which is still open, and you can self-respond until Halloween, but why wait? Just do it now. The address that you use for your household is wherever you were on April 1st, 2020. That's the day that the nation took a selfie. So just wherever you were, that's your address. So here's looking at you, anyone who's moved as much as I have around the same neighborhood. So here's some fun stats. So Ulster County does have a new representative named Jonathan, who has been working with Sullivan County since day one. But Carol, who is leaving her current role as the Ulster County U.S. Census rep, and I have plans to do some social distance packet making before she does finish her term at the end of this month. We've been sticking like census materials into the materials the Landlord Tenant Relations Council created. And my friend Alexa, aka Crescent Magic, has been having these, a few of them at her table at the open air market. And we're all brainstorming different ways to get this information out there, because you can do the census online, but you can also call in, and there's basically an 800 number you can use, and there's pretty much almost every single language, but notably not Lenape. A few more things I wanted to say. So Ulster County, as of this weekend, was ranked 33 out of the 62 counties in New York State. So we're not really doing so wonderfully. Ulster County's self-response rate right now as a whole is 55.7%, which is 2 full percentage points below the New York State rate, which is below the national average. And this is in terms of, going ahead and filling out the census without someone knocking on your door, which obviously is not happening right now because of the pandemic. There's a couple different stats. So New Paltz as a whole is at 55.6%, which is, on track to maybe, getting a better percentage than last time. But if you break it down to the different tracks that are within New Paltz, so it's not as it doesn't look as good. So track 9535, which is south of Maine in the village, not including campus though, is at 55% exactly. Tract 9534, which is the village north of Maine, minus Woodland Pond though, is at 63.7%. So good job, North of Maine, which is already beating the 2010 response rate. The town outside the village, however, and not including any of those large, like the dorms, like the campus or Woodland Pond, they call those like, group countings. So not counting those, the town outside the village is at 68.2%. So, my neighborhood here, south of Maine, we need to really pick it up. So that's my census update. Any questions?
No, that was super informative. Thanks, Alex.
Alex, I've got a, sorry, Tim.
Go ahead.
Alex, those numbers you were comparing are the percentage, we're down a percentage from a previous census or down from what's expected?
So everything's based on previous years, so 2010 is what everything's based on. There's no expected or projected. It's just we want to do better than we have before. We've never really surpassed like in New York State in general, like in the 60s. So it's like we need better participation. We are really lucky here in New Paltz, though, because we're at least wired. We're doing so much better than, for example, our neighbors so close by over in Sullivan County, where their response rate in some of their villages is at 30. So, they have different issues there because of lack of broadband. So we need to use our internet abilities and the fact that we have an open air market in operation, and maybe even the picnic tables that people, bring their takeout to, and other, public spaces. We need to use those to our advantage.
Sounds good. Any other announcements? Okay, Ariana, did we receive any public comments?
So far, none.
Okay, I motion that we move the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Someone want to lead us through item number 1, climate equity and justice related items and updates? So we have these 2 issues on this agenda, the village code inventory and the town of New Paltz police reform and reinvention. Are we going to talk a little bit about that, or should we hold off and wait until KT joins us next time?
I was having a hard time grappling with this for the past hour while I was attending the Ulster County Town Hall on their Justice Commission. I feel like we could talk about it, but it's like a lot of these sub projects, such as working on, for the, code inventory project, where like KT and I working together. So I don't know, up to you all.
If you want to give us a brief update, that would be, I think, useful for me based on what you learned when you participated in the Ulster County call today.
Yeah, one thing I learned, and I already thanked Eve, we are one of the few municipalities with a county legislature that was participating in that call whatsoever. So thank you so much to our county legislature for being there. I did point that out. That is an issue. They need to do more outreach to each of our municipalities. There's so many local electeds in Ulster County, as we know from, all the emergency calls, and there needs to be more involvement. There was notably in the makeup of the county commission, a lot of the same criticisms that our town board has been facing regarding how they have choose or find, the representatives of different stakeholder groups, and how they define diversity. So while on the county Justice Commission, Black Ulster County residents in areas of Kingston, for example, and Ellenville are pretty well represented, which is really, really good. It's a good step. But a few folks noted, and it was actually a number of New Paltz people who noted this. So thank you, New Paltz people, for speaking up. That the sheriff is the only Latinx representative on the commission, and he's on the commission because he's chief, not because he's representing that community whatsoever, which is, I don't have the number in front of me, but a big part of Ulster County is Latinx. So it was also brought up that there was a lack of LGBTQ representation on the county commission, just none at all. And then just other types of diversity were not like addressed, such as economic issues, different types of family situations, the things that we think about constantly here, in the village of New Paltz, like all the intersections of the issues. So seems like they have some work to do. Yeah, it was interesting. It was only like 80 people on it. So I'm trying to make a point to attend them as much as possible, but that's pretty much all the notes that I took from that. With our village code inventory project, basically I'm just still slowly, surely going through our code and finding the different instances, that I had pointed out previously of our use of police for enforcement. And KT and I have been looking at how, because mass gatherings is one of those examples in the code where it's like the revocation of a permit is, a police enforcement matter. We're looking at the city of Ithaca for a good guidance on how to do permitting of mass gatherings, so that it kind of reverses the approach. So it's like, rather than groups asking permission and it leading us down this weird wormhole of that I enjoy because I'm a nerd and should have gone to law school, but I didn't like talking about the Constitution for hours. That's not the point of like a permitting process. The point should be like keeping people safe, making sure everybody gets equal like opportunity to use our different public spaces and parks like for their events, and that no events like encroach on other people's rights to a quiet evening here in New Paltz. So we've been looking at that as an example. I have to follow up again with my contacts in Ithaca because I like getting kind of things walked through to me rather than just like looking at people's websites. But I think that's pretty cool. What else? Yeah, KT and I have been socially distanced outside watching each of the police commission meetings and whatnot. And really my notes from all of those are pretty much the same as what I just shared about the county is, it really, as leaders, we need every single leadership group to do a little bit more on the end of not waiting for different underrepresented groups to come to the government and be like, hey, I want to volunteer. We need to go to people where they're at, so that's kind of the big theme there. Any questions?
I don't have any questions, but thanks for providing that update. I think you're echoing a lot of the things that we've heard, and so that kind of reinforced messaging is very useful. So do we have any of these folks here ready to participate in an interview with us?
Not yet.
I'm feeling really encouraged by Riley Corzine, Ali Bell, and Zach Bielecki, who are interested in volunteering to serve on these. I know them or know people who know them. So
yeah, Riley's supposed to join us at 7:15, so I imagine he'll be here in just a minute. And Ali could not make it tonight. She had only written to me the other day, but so I told her that our next meeting would be August 12th.
I would be very comfortable. I mean, if you guys don't think that this is a crazy idea, if Riley's coming to speak with us, let's wait and speak with Riley. But I would be fine moving ahead with appointing Ali Bell as a researcher on the EPB.
Yeah, same. We've known Ali for a long time.
Yeah, I have as well. I was very excited when I saw that she wrote. I also forwarded it to the EPB, and Ted said that he would be happy to have her part of it as well. I don't know if he does or does not know her, but he expressed that. So I figure there's really no reason not to.
I motion that we appoint Ally Bell as a researcher to the EPB.
Second.
All in favor?
I.
And is Zach joining us today? Same thing, like we've met with Zach. Oh, there's Riley, but we've met with Zach when we appointed Zach to the Historic Preservation Commission. I spoke with Tom Olson 2 days ago. He was teasing me that he's very upset that we're stealing Zach from the HVC and putting him on the planning board. But actually, when I initially approached Zach and tried to twist his arm and see if he would be interested in the volunteering, I was hoping he would do planning board, and then as we discussed things, he mentioned his interest in HPC. But here he is. So should we go with Riley first, since Riley was scheduled for 7:15?
Yeah, let's go with Riley.
Yeah, I believe I
first.
was scheduled 7:15.
Hey, Riley.
Hey,
Good to see
Hi,
you
Riley. So
again.
tell us a little bit about your interest in becoming a researcher on EPB.
so I've always been interested in volunteering in the community, and you've heard of the Wallkill River Watershed Alliance, I'm assuming.
Yes.
I helped them organize a tree planting because, they needed someone to get the volunteers and everything. And I thought, I wanted to take on another project because, I think that planting trees and bushes is really important for the environment. And Rachel contacted me asking if I wanted to take charge of the Bee City project for the village. And it looked like a really good opportunity to, make some transformations. The village hall is the first place that we're interested in, and we're going to hopefully be planting some pollinator friendly plants. And I think that a position as a researcher would help me sort of communicate with the people that I need to communicate with and really just get the gears moving on this project.
Sounds good.
That sounds great. Does anyone have any specific questions for Riley about the Bee City project? Maybe Bill, since
Yes, sir. I could explain a little bit more about the scope and everything.
Yeah, Riley, go ahead and do that, please.
Yeah. So basically, the first thing that we want to do is we want to add some mulch to the front of the village hall. And you know what? Actually, I can send a photo and of some ideas that I was thinking about. But what I hope to do is I really hope to plant some bushes there that are pollinator friendly. And I was considering a bunch of different options, and we're hoping to get a small board of people from the village environmental board who might have some ideas about that. But we're really hoping to just make it a little bit more of a lively place, pollinator friendly, and just a little bit more aesthetically pleasing too.
Hey, Riley, off the top of your head, what are a couple of bushes that are pollinator friendly? Do you by any chance know?
Yeah, I've been doing quite a bit of research about that. I have 5 bushes so far that I've been thinking about, and 2 options because we would want to. Well, the first option, I guess, is the honeyberry bush, which is not too tall, so it wouldn't block the windows. And it's also wild edible too, so it can help feed the animals, I guess you can say, like the birds. And the next option is the northern bush honeysuckle, which is great because it's native to North America, I think the Northeast too. And it's pollinator friendly, and it can grow in a lot of different types of soil. Should I continue on?
What are the other three?
Did you hear the question? They wanted to know a couple more names. I
Oh,
mean,
I'm
you're doing
sorry.
really well on this quiz so far.
Okay, I'm all right. My internet is not so good, so I'm having a hard time hearing what you're saying. But you want me to tell you some more? Actually, if there's a place I could send my ideas out to, that would be cool. But I'll go
That'd be
on.
awesome.
Another bush that I was thinking about is the Gowomi berry. I'm not completely sure. I probably butchered that, but it's a little bit taller, and I was thinking it could go in the corners where it's not blocking the window. And it's nice because it's also wild edible, pollinator friendly, and native to North America. And that's for if we just keep the soil like it is. But there's the second option is that we mulch the soil with pine needles to make it acidic. So this is a completely different option. It just sort of depends on what people's preferences. We're going to send out a little letter to a group of people on the environmental board just to ask, what they'd like and what they think would look the best. And the next option is planting the rhododendron, dwarf rhododendron, which is also pollinator friendly native here, and the high bush blueberry, which is a classic.
Riley, in your research, have you come across how much any of these bushes cost if we were to buy them at a local nursery?
So we have, so we're working with, let me just find it really quick.
Future Fruits.
We're working with a guy named Jared, and he's in charge of the Future Fruits. Have you heard of that from Kingston? The Future Fruits.
I'm familiar.
Well, he has a nursery that has a lot of different plants, and he's willing to provide us them. I'm not sure what the cost is yet, but it seems like it wouldn't be too much. It would be maybe like $15 to $30 per bush. And the village environmental board also told me that they have $1,000 of budget. So I'm gonna try to make it as cheap as possible, but the cost would be around maybe $100 to $200. It seems like, assuming that we plant like 5 to 10 bushes.
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't realize bushes could be so inexpensive. I guess I was thinking about trees, which generally cost more money. So that's encouraging.
Yeah. And in the future, though, we do hope to plant some trees. Or if this project goes well, I do hope to expand and plant bushes, see if we could plant bushes in other parts of the town too. But of course, this village hall is sort of the starter. And that's just a rough estimate. $100 to $200 is just a very rough estimate. We also would have to factor in the cost of the mulch, the compost, and that stuff. So it could come up to maybe $400 possibly. But it's hard to know the cost because we're first just trying to figure out what people would like to see there. But it is good to know that we do have a pretty good budget.
So Riley, I meant to bring this up at the Environmental Policy Board when we virtually met. And so it's been on my notebook since then. But were you aware that with the skate garden project where we're building a skate park in Hasbrook Park, a big goal with that everyone involved has expressed is wanting to include some, some cool vegetation, immersed in the architecture, maybe some edible type things, for the birds and whatnot.
Yeah,
actually, so that might be another area to think about.
I actually was talking to my friend who's involved in that project the other day, and he told me that he's really into it, right? He loves skateboarding, and he told me that I asked him, would it be okay if I could see if I could plant some bushes there? And he said he'd be very happy with that because he always likes having nice looking landscape near where he hangs out with his friends and goes skateboarding. So I'm definitely have been thinking about it. I haven't talked to anyone about it, but it's sort of something that it is something that I've been thinking about too. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for that.
Hey, Riley.
Soon we'll have some maps and stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
So Riley, I've got a question. Are you thinking about blooming times and staggering them from spring to fall, particularly in the midsummer range, because that's when the dearth hits?
So we've decided that fall will be a good time to plant, and these usually well, I know that the rhododendron and the blueberries will bloom, in June through July. So it will take a year for them to bloom, but it will be towards the summer when they bloom, and fall seems like a good time to plant them because spring and fall are the times to plant bushes anyway. So hopefully if we get them planted this fall, then they can bloom next summer.
Sure, but my question is, are you going to stagger the plants that you're getting so that they bloom from spring to fall? Are the types of plants that you're looking at, the bushes, their bloom times should be different, as some will bloom in May, some will bloom in June, some will bloom in August. And if you're working
I understand. Sorry, the audio is cutting out, so I was a little bit confused. That is something I haven't thought about quite yet. I just thought in general that they would all bloom in the summer, but I think that it would be a good idea to look at the times that they bloom, so they bloom at the proper a good time of year when people are seeing them. So like one will bloom in the spring, one will bloom late spring, one will bloom in the fall. So something will always be blooming. Is that what you were saying?
Well, actually, sort of. There are bushes that'll bloom in late summer, and that's when the dearth is, and the dearth is when there's low flow of nectar, and that's when pollinators need the nectar the most. So you might consider plantings that bloom late summer to early fall. That's my suggestion.
Yeah. Actually, that is a good suggestion. I didn't think about the times of blooming, but yeah, I do know that late summer would be a very it would be good to consider that to make sure that they do bloom late summer though, because we don't want them to just all be blooming in the spring and then just die out by late summer and fall, if that makes sense.
Thank
Hey, Riley, this sounds super exciting, and I'm looking forward to the improvements in front of Village Hall. I think you're actually going to get the front of that building in shape and set it up for what it really should look like. We're finally going to reach its exterior aesthetic potential. So thanks for volunteering. So I motion that we appoint Riley as a researcher.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Cool. Now, Zach, let's chat with you about your interest in volunteering on the planning board.
Sure. Sounds good.
So who has the hard questions for Zach, like the real zingers?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to stand up to a grilling like Riley was.
Yeah, that was probably one of the toughest interviews we've ever done as a village board, and Riley creamed it. So Zach, tell us about your interest in the planning board and how you feel you could contribute.
Yeah, so I've been serving on the Historic Preservation Commission for a little over a year now, and I was an alternate for a few months before then. And I've been involved in a lot of projects on that commission where we are looking at more aesthetic changes to outsides of buildings on Huguenot Street and other landmarked properties. And I've enjoyed doing that work a lot. But I've been feeling like there are a lot of other projects coming up on the horizon, some much larger ones and some smaller ones that I'd also like to contribute to more and, help out with, make my voice heard, that kind of thing. And so I feel like the planning board actually would give me more of an opportunity to do that.
Sorry, took myself off mute. So my question is, while you did any work on the HPC, did you ever find yourself using the village code online, just like searching for anything just to see how our code handled a particular issue?
Yeah, certain things such as, just getting the specific setback from lot lines, or most of the issues that we dealt with on the HPC weren't specifically covered in village code. It was a lot of kind of aesthetic things, especially when dealing with Huguenot Street properties. So yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm very experienced searching the code for those types of things, but I definitely feel capable of doing that.
Yeah, I think that's great and important, because probably the way any of us have to think about the role of the planning board is you review land use applications and make determinations based on the code itself. So the fact that you have some familiarity, I think, is exactly the the first step to understanding that process. We actually pay a decent amount of money to make sure that our code is not just printed in a physical book, but it's available online. And I think many people, especially elected officials and planning board members, like rely on that online code. Like, let's say you have a search word like parking or setbacks, and you just enter it in and see where it's discussed. And that's, it's a really useful feature to understand how the code works. So I think it's great that you have some initial familiarity. What's your next question, Alex? You said I stole that question from you.
Oh, yeah. Well, I didn't have another one. Mine was about the code, like familiarity with it. Yeah, just because I find that is so important to be able, it's really easy to use is the thing. But just being familiar that it's even like a thing. Like I've been training a lot of people how to search the code in terms of the police, inventory project. So I think it's really important. My only other question would be like, how do you feel about zoning out fossil fuels? But it's not even like a real thing that we're facing here. But what if Newburgh's problems came to New Paltz?
I'm not actually familiar with Newburgh's problems.
I've got a cool webinar I'll send to you. It's all about planning. It features the mayor and deputy mayor and our senator and Haley from Scenic Hudson.
Excellent. Okay.
I'm making a note.
Yeah. I guess the other thing about the code is that I have been involved in the process over the last few months of coming up with some code revisions to potentially transform the HPC into more of an architectural review board. And so been reading a lot of the sections of the code pertaining to that, and working on some changes to the language there. And that's another project that I would look forward to working on the planning board.
Yeah, I think that makes a great deal of sense. Yeah, it's a project we've been working on for a few years, and figuring out how we can formalize that process where we have some sort of architectural review or design process, and using some of the existing structure in terms of HPC members. So I think your familiarity with that will be useful as a planning board member. Michelle or Bill, did you guys have any questions for Zach?
No, but thank you for volunteering your time to this very important position.
Yeah, hi, Zach. It's Bill. Can you tell me a little bit about what you see happening in the future for New Paltz? What you'd like to see happen in New Paltz in the future?
Yes, absolutely. Good question. There are a couple things that I see on the horizon as potentially game-changing projects. The pit project has a lot of potential, and I think it's going to be a multi-year process, but that's definitely one of the things that I'm looking at. There's potentially that boutique hotel next to Convenient Deli, which is another type of thing that could be really good or could be really bad, depending on the involvement of the community and the planning board. And I think that there could be potentially some changes in the composition of the community. More people are moving up here, getting out of the city. Maybe some properties go from being rental properties to family-owned properties. So who knows what's going to happen with that? But I think would be good to be involved.
Well, that's great. I'd like to motion that we appoint Zach Bielecki to the planning board.
Second.
Ariana, do we have a date, like what term is Zach sitting in, or will you confirm that later?
Yeah, no, I have that right in front of me. So there's two terms to be filled out, actually. One is ending in June of 2023, and the other is in June of 2024.
Zach, what do you want to do? The longer one with the, so you can enjoy more benefits?
Don't give him a choice.
I'll do the longer one. That's
Okay.
fine.
Thank you.
So we're appointing him to the June 24, and then we'll re-up then. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you,
good night,
Zach.
everyone.
Okay, so our next item is we have a proposal from Nancy, our treasurer, to use Leslie as, to help her with the submission for our AUD for the fiscal year end 2020 at a cost of $1,100. So we've used Leslie in the past, and it actually ends up saving us some money as opposed to using the full service accounting firm. So I'd like to motion that we go ahead and do that. It saves us money, and Nancy finds Leslie's services to be just as good, if not better, than using the full service accounting firm.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then the next item is, we've been working on this project for a very long time. This is the LED street lighting project where we're looking to buy our street lights from Central Hudson. This is a program where we're receiving New York Power Authority assistance. So this is just a resolution where we're declaring that we want to serve as lead agency per the seeker process. So I motion that we move this resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Next item is local law, where we're amending chapter 198.25. So this just had to do with, you couldn't make left turns into that intersection at Hasbrook and Tricor, or Hasbrook and leaving the village parking lot. So this is just allowing vehicles to make left-hand turns when they're going north or south. And it made sense before that you couldn't make a left-hand turn because there was no stop sign, but now you have a four-way stop, so vehicles can more safely navigate that intersection. So I'd like to set a public hearing for our next meeting regarding this this update to how that intersection is patrolled.
For August 12th?
That's our next meeting. Sounds good?
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I piggyback on that? I just thought of something and I don't want to forget it. We had talked about, and it might have been just pre-pandemic, about adding the handicap parking space there at the park and then looking at it on Main Street as well. I just don't remember where we are in that, and should we get it back on the agenda to look at again? Did we pass it? I can't recall.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I thought we did kind of move that thing along a little bit. Ariana, does that ring any bells for you? Like where that initiative stands?
I did not think it was passed, but I'm gonna look it up right now. Okay, wait.
Yeah, because
no, we did have a public hearing. We noticed it. Approved March 11th.
Yeah, right.
So-
before.
So, this was approved the same day as I'm realizing what happened, because how the stop signs just went in? I think they were approved on the same day and submitted at the same time. So I think that, since the pandemic hit really right then, that the DPW just the message did not get to them, whatever the minutes were. I don't really know exactly what happened or how it happened, but Since they didn't know about the stop signs, they probably didn't know about this. I'll forward it to them.
Okay, so you can make sure whatever we approved previously, that gets done as well. Okay. But we have a public hearing set for this left turn law that will eliminate from that section of our code. All right, should we wait for KT to do short-term rentals, or do you guys want to discuss this topic this evening?
I would like if we could talk about it real quick, so I can get a sense of where I'm looking, you know, in the next few weeks, if you don't mind, just because I feel like we have so many good examples now to look at, and I want to get a sense of what, I guess, which direction we're looking in, because it turns out if you really delve into E-Code 360, there's a lot of different local laws about short-term rentals and whatnot. So I don't know if someone can tell me which example, like, I should pay the most attention to, because I feel like I read a lot of different laws that exist and sample ones in the past few days, and now I feel really just kind of confused.
Well, I can speak to these two if you want me to just talk about what is on the agenda linked here. The draft from Will Frank, he did not have a lot of direction regarding what the board had wanted when he sent this, and he just sent this to be like a starting point for conversation that he would then edit. I was pulling from the Coxsackie one, and then when I was looking at the Woodstock one, which are things that we'd already had in that short-term rentals folder that I shared with all of you. The Woodstock one seemed to be a lot closer to what we were looking for, but still had things about it that do not really apply to us in terms of like their maybe more robust, I don't know, like rental community and bed and breakfast community is what it sounds like. So that's kind of where we're at, where like one of them prohibits it explicitly. And then the other two are kind of like trying to regulate it. The one from Coxsackie was just so complicated, totally over-regulating it. I just kind of went with the Woodstock one.
Yeah, the Coxsackie one, I liked, I think, I don't know the spirit, but it was very easy to get lost in. Thank you.
But I feel like Bill wanted to say something.
Yeah, I had been following the Woodstock development for a couple of years. And I thought it's, you know, they really wrestled with it for, I think, 3 years, maybe longer. But my question is, I thought that the county was thinking about passing a short-term rental law. Have you heard anything about that, anyone?
I don't think that the county could pass a local zoning law that would
Okay.
not fly.
Yeah. Okay. So there were a couple of things in Woodstock, as Ari mentioned, that need to be, you know, looked at and examined. The one thing that I did think that we should have some sort of fee for this, an application fee, and limit the number of permits that we give to by zone for short-term rentals. And of course, it must be a resident of the home to do so. Those seems to be the very big points. Somebody being at home when this occurs.
I would just add that the issue with I'm forgetting exactly what it was, but with the county. The county is involved in charging things like bed tax, but they would not be involved in determining whether or not short-term rentals are allowed. They're more about, you know, what the fee would be. Is there a cost for a license? So I think that's what you're referring to, Bill, in terms of things that have been considered by the county. So I mean, we need someone to come up with a draft law that can be circulated. So it seems like we're close. We're looking at this Woodstock law, but maybe we want to update it and then circulate it to our board so we could read it as a first draft.
Well, I think what would be good, and maybe this is something we need to wait for KT on, but I had sent an email that was, my two main pieces of understanding that all of you were in agreement on was that you wanted it to be owner occupied only, whether that means the owner is present actually while, like, it's an accessory apartment kind of situation, or it means that this is just this person's primary domicile where they live there most of the time and maybe they rent it out, for 1 month of the summer or a couple weeks a year or whatever. And the idea that using a property solely for the purpose of this is likened to using it as a commercial business when it's a residential property.
Yeah, I really feel like we need to take a step back from whether it's residential or commercial, and like in certain zones, if it's a residential zone, then you might only allow owner occupied short-term rentals. If it's in a residential zone, then you can't have any any short-term rentals unless it's owner occupied, because then it kind of flips into a commercial property.
I think that's exactly what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's wait for KT's feedback on this, and then let's someone work towards getting a draft that we can review.
Yeah, I'll work with KT and get that going.
Okay.
Can I just add one concern I had in general? And I can't find a good example that exists at all in the state, but just for sometimes somebody who's a renter, who's a tenant, might like want to Airbnb. It's actually, I don't know how common it is here, but it's one way, like someone like me would be able to like get like a nicer apartment and not necessarily always have a roommate, but like only have a room, a roommate Airbnb on the weekends and stuff. And I just want us to kind of like think about that, because sometimes there's like a lease agreement that does explicitly, say like you cannot do this, but if that's not the case, like that might be because a tenant is not the owner, but they're the primary occupant, if that makes sense. But still, that's a big way a lot of my peers survive.
Yeah, it seems like if a landlord permits it and it's already a registered rental, and if the renter is only there part-time, it's still fine with any rental registration zoning rules.
Because isn't that what the rule is for Runa? That house, and then the owner doesn't have to live there, but it was decided that there has to be.
No. Runa is just there was something in our code where it's not a bed and breakfast, but it's considered something else. Like, yeah, it's not a short-term rental property. To be I think there's like some stipulation, like we researched every possible thing that Runa could be, but it's not a short-term rental.
Okay.
It's more similar to like a mini hotel that has food offerings. Like it's in the code. That was the determination that allowed it to exist. All right, so let's wait for KT and then hopefully get a draft of short-term rental laws. And then I think these improvements to the Shade Tree Commission law are super clear. And, it's kind of like what we've been hoping for a while. So I'd like to make a motion that we have a public hearing to update these improvements to this Shade Tree Commission law at the August 12th meeting.
Great. Second.
All in favor?
Okay.
Great. Okay, I'd like to motion that we move bills and claims.
Second.
All in favor? And
Aye.
then, Bill, you wanted to touch base with this on the the 5 Broadhead, they were before the planning board yesterday.
Sure. And it was the main entree, I would think, of the discussion last night, as well as the HPC meeting on Monday night, discussion of 5 Broadhead. I think the big news is that the resolution was changed. They approved the idea that Stewards would have a little bit more time to get the street light installed rather than hold up their certificate of occupancy. And that the resolution included that we, the village, would have an agreement now as a result of the resolution to take 6 months. We have up to 6 months to resolve the situation with the house. So that's, I think, a great thing. Gives us just about half a year to find a buyer and figure things out.
Right. So I circulated the draft RFP. Tom Olson teed that up, and I tried to make some changes to it. So I sent it to Will and Rick. I think you probably all saw it kind of late-ish today. Will suggested, because we have some kind of ambitious ideas in that draft. So we're going to see if our attorneys can turn it into something that's only ambitious but still legal. So
Tim, how are people learning about this
the
opportunity?
RFP? Well, the RFP is not ready to go yet. Once it's ready, then we will broadcast that we want developers to respond.
Okay. So, I'm just confused as who do we do that through? Through the newspapers? Is there...
Yeah, all the above. The same way that we would advertise any public project. We want as many bidders as possible to express interest in acquiring the property so they could restore it.
And if someone's interested, we'll be able to allow those people to look inside and inspect before.
We'll figure that all out when it's ready. We'll probably have to have one time when people can inspect the property in a safe manner, where they're with our building department officials, like that type of thing. Yeah, it's not going to be an open house or.
Right. Okay.
It might be like an as is from what it looks like at the street. If Corey decides that it's just entirely too safe, maybe we'll open up one window and someone can peek in. Like, I don't know, obviously that will all be confirmed before we have anyone look.
Great. All right. Thanks, Tim.
Sure. Any update from the ZBA liaison?
We have not had a meeting.
Okay. All right. I think that's all we have for this evening. Should we motion to adjourn?
A motion.
Second.
Third.
All in favor. All right.
Aye.
See everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.